This is Webcams. My name is Peter Beaumont, and in this episode I'm going to be interviewing John Davey, who is the manager of the SOLSTICE Centre for Excellence in Teaching and Learning here at Edgehill University. So I'd like to welcome John Davey here. He's the SOLSTICE manager. Can you explain a little bit about where you come from to become the SOLSTICE manager? What's your background?
My real background from years ago was in graphic design and illustration. So I trained as an illustrator, and I went through 12 years of freelancing before I ended up as a designer for a regional museum and art gallery. So very different in some respects, but there are sort of connections. So that idea of eventually, when I was sort of working as a designer, that was using technology because the way of producing artwork was going down that sort of route, and it was always very much around communication and sort of being able to communicate a message. So there are links with the idea of what we do through e-learning that way. But I had no intention of coming into higher education, and happened to see a post of learning technology designer. And
so the design.
So it was the designer bit that attracted me. So that's how I came into that sort of role at Edgehill, and then I went into the role of managing the team of learning technologies when the team had grown to a size where that was more essential. And then from there, when SOLSTICE came along, applied for the SOLSTICE manager's post.
Yeah, so it was just a natural progression from there. That's quite interesting. I think it's interesting for people to sort of know where you come from and understand you a bit better. As for SOLSTICE, SOLSTICE is a Centre for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, isn't it? Been funded by HEFCE. How would you, if you wanted to describe what SOLSTICE is doing at Edgehill to an academic who maybe heard the name but never known anything else but that, what would you like to say? How would you like to present it?
I suppose the key thing would be to say that the overall aim of what we're trying to do is about enhancing the student learning and the environment for students. So that's where it's coming from, and it focuses on supported online and blended learning, which you could, if you wanted to, replace that with the word e-learning, but we decided supported online and blended learning maybe reflected more the idea that it wasn't just about the technology. And I'm not saying just the word e-learning suggests that, but it
possibly does to some people.
So it encompassed broader things than that, and I think it's maybe an acceptance that you couldn't isolate the technology side from the rest of what went on. So that's where it comes from, and through SOLSTICE, hopefully by investment in some of the technologies, through using research to inform how we can impact on the student experience and on student learning, and through being student-centred in our approach, we're hoping to have an impact on that relation to learning.
Okay, that's a nice overview. Can you remember what SOLSTICE stands for? Because I'm sure that will impress everybody.
I can, and it's always the embarrassing bit. It stands for Supported Online Learning for Students Using Technology for Information and Communication in Their Education.
So I suppose the important part of that is the supported online learning. If people remember supported online learning, that's kind
then
of
hopefully that's a way in.
Part of the heart of SOLSTICE. So, who's working on the project at the moment?
There's it's a bit of a difficult one to sort of define a clean-cut team, in the sense that there is a core SOLSTICE team sort of involved in sort of almost like managing and administrating the project, what have you. So there's a SOLSTICE manager, SOLSTICE administrator, SOLSTICE research officer. But then the wider learning technology development team could be classed as a part of the SOLSTICE team, because they're involved in projects at times. There's an even wider Solstice team, which is the Solstice Fellows and Associate Fellows, who are either academic staff or learning support staff who have been applied for and been awarded a 2-year fellowship in relation to Solstice work. So they would all get involved in Solstice as well. And then there may be other academic staff who don't fit into any of those categories, but because of some of the projects that Solstice is working on, get involved in those as well.
Yes, there's a lot of different people working on different projects. And if anyone watching wanted to get involved, how would they go about that? Would they talk to you?
Well, I think the interesting thing is, if anybody wanted to get involved, they would come and talk to me. And I think the interesting thing is, just because somebody is working within e-learning or with learning technologies doesn't automatically mean that that would be a Solstice project. And I think that's sometimes the difficult distinction that maybe people are making. So, you know, as a member of the learning technology development team, you're working on an awful lot of things with academic staff day in, day out, that are part of the almost like the bread and butter provision that you provide. Where Solstice is making a distinction is that, I guess, that's where we've defined specific projects or initiatives or developments where, with research at the heart of that, as a way of informing those developments, and also with research at the other end of that in terms of what's come out of those initiatives and informing future practice. Those particular projects or initiatives are being used through Solstice to sort of further that. So sorry, I haven't worded that particularly well at all.
Yeah, but there's a lot of projects going on. Some you might want to work with the learning technology development team. Others you'd be getting extra support from Solstice to do research and something.
And I think, and the difficulty is almost suggesting that Solstice is very much doing something that's different to what the learning technology development team are doing, and in reality that's not particularly the case. Maybe what Solstice is doing is formalising some of those things more than they have done before. So by suggesting that Solstice is very much focused on is being informed by research and is generating research isn't anything that's necessarily out of step with what the learning technology development team are doing. But I guess what Solstice is doing is almost formalising that as part of the initiative.
Yeah, and then you'll have a method at the end, or you've got a method now, haven't you, the Solstice method?
Yeah, a developing method, but what we would like to do is think that over the long term that becomes a sustainable way of working. That actually that way of working, which is very much informed by research and scholarship, and generates research and scholarship, is the way that learning technology developments happen within the institution.
Okay, well, I think that's quite a nice place to wrap up that little section. Something that gets mentioned a lot are new academic teams in relation to Solstice. What are those? How would you describe?
New academic teams are groups of professionals with individual areas of knowledge or expertise who, working collaboratively on initiatives, get to effective solutions. Now, people might argue that they often work together with other people, but I think, especially from the early days of e-learning, when sometimes it was thought that an academic came along and they did absolutely everything. I think there's a realisation from our part and promotion of the idea that the most effective solutions are from hybrid teams, where people bring to the table their own knowledge and expertise and specialisms that they can input to projects and developments. But we see the idea of new academic teams as being a key part of the move to effective solutions in supported online and blended learning. And I think that model has been with us at Edge Hill actually for a long time, because the very first online programme that was developed here, which was a postgraduate certificate for clinical practitioners, actually used that model.
Okay.
And I think all that it's done is almost taken some time to really sort of articulate that.
Well, I think that's kind of been an interesting introduction to Solstice and the projects surrounding it. Obviously, if you want to know more, you'll be able to contact John and the Solstice team, and we'll put contact details in the show notes on the website. So, thanks for watching.